Young and the Restless spoilers revealed the emergency call from an unknown number and Sharon and Phyllis's life-or-death fight. The phone call from an unknown number sent Nick and Summer into a panic. Starting with a cold and threatening voice, the call not only sent them into a mental crisis but also pushed them into an extremely dangerous situation. The caller demanded a ransom of up to $10,000, a huge amount that Nick and Summer had no idea how to meet. As soon as the call ended, anxiety began to take over. Nick quickly contacted his family, while Summer, always the strong and calm one, could not keep calm about the fact that Sharon and Phyllis were being held captive, with their lives hanging in the balance. But things did not end there. While the kidnappers demanded a huge sum of money, what made Nick and Summer even more confused was that they were not only threatening Sharon and Phyllis, but also ordering them to comply with terrifying demands. The call from Sedona: Sharon and Phyllis would be allowed to call their loved ones, but not freely. The kidnapper had strict conditions, forcing the two girls to utter threats and implied death if they did not comply. The call would come from a blocked number, making Nick and Summer even more confused. When Nick's phone rang, he was startled to see that it was an unknown number. He picked it up and heard Sharon's voice, but this did not reassure him at all. "Hello from Sedona," Sharon said, her tone seeming a little strange and distant. Nick heard the haste in her words, as if she was trying to hide something. He quickly asked, "Why are you calling from an unknown number? Aren't you calling from your own phone?" Sharon answered vaguely, with an unclear, "I lost my phone and I'm calling from a recorder." Nick began to feel worried, feeling that something was wrong. "Are you okay, Sharon?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. But her response was just a simple, cold, "Good night, Nick." Then she immediately hung up. Nick sat in the dark room, stunned. Sharon had clearly not been telling the truth, and that made him feel that something was very wrong with this call. A sense of unease welled up in him, and he quickly shared with his parents about the call and the contradictions in Sharon's words. Doubts and red flags, Nick couldn't stop thinking about the conversation that had just taken place. He shared with Victoria and Victor that Sharon claimed to have texted Mariah and Faith Newman to let them know she was going away, but the truth was something else entirely. Sharon had not texted them at all, and more importantly, she had even asked Nick to make sure everyone knew she was okay. The details didn't add up, and Nick couldn't help but be suspicious. "Are we seeing anything strange?" Nick asked in confusion, looking straight into his parents' eyes. Sharon said she texted Mariah and Faith, but clearly she didn't. "And her demands are making me even more worried. We're seeing red flags all over the place." Doubts were growing in Nick's mind. Why was Sharon lying? Why was she trying to convince him that everything was okay when there was clearly something else going on? Every detail of the call makes Nick unable to believe what Sharon is saying, and his confusion grows as he realizes that this story may be much more complicated than he thought. As Nick deals with doubts and family tensions, Summer can't stop thinking about Phyllis's situation. She knows her mother is capable of handling hardships, but this time, she can't help but worry about the worst. Can they save Sharon and Phyllis before it's too late? Or is it all an elaborate scheme to trick them into paying the ransom, with unforeseen consequences? Rescue plans and tough choices, the tension in the Newman household is mounting. Nick, Summer, and Victoria will face a difficult decision. Can they come up with such a large ransom? While paying the ransom might save Sharon and Phyllis, is it the only way to ensure their safety? Or is there another way to resolve the situation without being controlled by the kidnapper? Each option carries risks, and the lack of clear information makes every decision more difficult than ever. Will they gamble with the huge sum of money to save Sharon and Phyllis, or will they find another way to deal with the situation? Sharon and Phyllis's tense situation, can they escape the kidnapper? When Sharon Newman and Phyllis Summers find themselves trapped in a dangerous situation, their lives are suddenly thrown into a spiral of fear, uncertainty, and threats from their captor. Knowing that their lives are hanging in the balance, they must remain calm and find a way to deal with the dangerous kidnapper. Meanwhile, Nick Newman and Summer are both left reeling as they receive strange, inexplicable calls and messages. Can they resolve the situation before it's too late? A call that causes anxiety and suspicion. When Nick receives his first call from Sharon, he can't help but feel that something is wrong. Sharon says she lost her phone and is calling from a voice recorder, but the reason she's calling from an unknown number and talking about going away makes him even more suspicious. The conversation with Sharon ended quickly with a short, cold, "Good night, Nick." This was a greeting that he knew Sharon would never say under normal circumstances, which made him even more suspicious. Before he could recover, Nick received another text message from Summer, informing him that Phyllis had arrived and was okay. Although this was welcome news, the unsettling feeling did not go away. Nick's mother, Nikki, also joined the discussion and could not help but notice the strange coincidence between Sharon's call from an unknown number and the text from Summer. "It's probably nothing to worry about," Nikki said, but Nick could not help but think about the red flags he had noticed in Sharon's story. Nick was not sure that this was a coincidence. He felt that something was being hidden, and that made him suspicious of everything that was going on. Although Summer reassures him that Phyllis is fine, with the vague details from Sharon and the unusual way Phyllis and Sharon are allowed to make phone calls, Nick knows that something much bigger is going on. Phyllis's call, the next call Summer receives from Phyllis, adds to the unease. Phyllis explains that she lost her phone and is calling from a recorder, and apologizes for missing breakfast and worrying Summer. She also sends her love to Summer and Kyle, telling them that she loves them. However, these words, while seemingly sincere, make Summer feel uncomfortable. The reason is simple: Phyllis's apologies and interruptions in the conversation do not match what she thinks of the current situation. Perhaps Phyllis is trying to hide something, or even playing a dangerous game with the kidnapper. Phyllis, who has always been a strong woman, now has to accept the fact that she is in a situation she cannot control. But despite everything, she still does not lose faith and tries to maintain her composure while Sharon is also suffering. The two of them face an unforeseen situation together, but Phyllis cannot stop thinking about strange theories about what is happening. The kidnapper and the doubt. When Sharon and Phyllis tell the kidnapper that they have followed all his requests, he only coldly replies, "Rest. Tomorrow is another day." The two of them cannot understand the kidnapper's intentions, but they know that this is not a normal situation. His words are full of threats and make them feel like they are in a dangerous game that they cannot escape. After receiving the kidnapper's instructions, Sharon and Phyllis both sat down and tried to find a way to stay calm. But the truth was, they both knew that they could be attacked at any moment. There was no one here to save them, and every second that passed made their anxiety and insecurity increase. They both wondered if the kidnapper knew anything about their past, and what purpose he had in kidnapping them. Phyllis, with her sharp intelligence and deduction skills, began to come up with a creepy theory. "This crazy guy clearly knows us, wants us to blow up or something," Phyllis said, her voice full of tension. "Maybe we're not just playing with the kidnapper, we're just playing with each other." Phyllis and Sharon's analysis. Phyllis, always the one who was best at analyzing situations, began to realize that the kidnapper might be more than just a regular enemy. Perhaps he had some connection to them or to someone from their past that they didn't know about. His words weren't just the words of a criminal, but there seemed to be a layer of mystery behind them. Sharon and Phyllis quickly realized that they needed to not only find a way to escape their captor, but also find out his true motives. With these thoughts in mind, Phyllis and Sharon are more alert than ever. They know that this kidnapper is not simple and that the only way to solve this situation is to work together, using all the intelligence and resilience they have. Together, they will have to find a way to escape his control, and hopefully not be pushed into more dangerous situations. The fight for survival continues. Although Phyllis and Sharon know that they are facing danger, they are still hoping for a chance to escape. Every minute is important and can change their lives. Meanwhile, Nick and Summer are still trying to find a way to save them. Will they be able to arrange the ransom? Or will they have to face the fact that Sharon and Phyllis may be in the kidnapper's hands forever? This question remains unanswered, and in the darkness, the fight for survival continues. Billy and the Phyllis secret investigation, suspicion, cover UPS, and complicated family ties in a story filled with tension and suspicion. Billy Abbott finds himself in a difficult situation as suspicions about Phyllis Summers grow. At the same time, Nick Newman and Daniel Romalotti must carry out a cover-up without giving Billy any clues. The unusual circumstances surrounding Phyllis and Sharon Newman's calls have raised suspicions among both men, and they must now decide how to handle sensitive information without causing further confusion. However, Billy, with his inquisitive nature and concern for Phyllis, will not stop searching for the truth behind her strange disappearance. Will Billy uncover the mysteries that Nick and Daniel are trying to hide? Strange calls and suspicious signs. The incident began when Phyllis and Sharon, two strong and independent women, suddenly lost contact. After the strange calls from Sharon and Phyllis, both Nick and Daniel sensed that something was wrong. The vague answers from both women, combined with the fact that they had suddenly lost their phones and were traveling unexpectedly, made things suspicious. "It can't be a coincidence," Daniel said, his voice filled with concern after ending the call with Nick. "Sharon and Phyllis both lost their phones? And they both suddenly went somewhere without warning? That's very suspicious." Nick nodded in agreement. "I feel like there's something going on. But there's nothing we can do but keep an eye on the situation. After all, they said they were fine, right?" But for Billy, this was something that couldn't be ignored. When he returns from Paris and hears about Phyllis's disappearance, he can't help but wonder. Despite Nick and Daniel's attempts to convince him that Phyllis is just on her own, Billy senses that something is off, especially since he knows that Phyllis had been so eager to start work at Abbott Communications. The suddenness of this trip doesn't make sense, and Billy senses that there may be something more behind her disappearance. Family ties and secrets to hide. Nick and Daniel both try to keep Phyllis and Sharon's real reasons for being away a secret. Summer, who actually heard Phyllis's voice while Nick was on the phone with Sharon, can't deny how strange the whole thing is. Although Summer tries to keep her cool and not let any concerns creep in, she has to admit that the situation is very strange. Phyllis, in her absence, texted Summer, warning her not to reveal any information to Billy. She also said that she was following up on important business contacts, which added to her suspicions as to why Phyllis did not want Billy to know about her trip. Summer, while not entirely understanding, understood that she could not tell Billy about the situation. This added to her stress, as she knew that Billy would not accept vague explanations. With his suspicions mounting, Billy decided to ask Nick and Daniel directly about Phyllis. "Are you sure about this?" Billy asked, sounding uneasy. "I know Phyllis, and I know when she's hiding something. This sudden trip doesn't make sense." Daniel and Nick exchanged worried glances. They knew that Billy wasn't the type to be fooled. But they also knew that if they didn't find a way to keep things secret, things could get worse. "Phyllis just wanted some alone time," Nick tried to explain. "She's been busy with work and just needed some space to think." Billy stared at Nick, unconvinced. "You can't tell me she just went on a trip without telling me anything. She's excited about starting her new job at Abbott Communications, and I don't believe she just went on a casual trip like that." Billy knows that something bigger is going on. He begins to sense that Phyllis may be in trouble and that her disappearance is not a coincidence. He decides to keep searching for the truth and begins to investigate seriously. Potential dangers emerge with his suspicions growing. Billy begins to wonder if Phyllis is really having some serious problems at work. No matter how Phyllis tries to cover it up or explain it away, Billy will not ignore the shady signs he has discovered. With Nick and Daniel involved in hiding the truth about Phyllis's situation, the story becomes more tense than ever. Billy will not let things go so easily. Will Billy be able to decipher the secrets that are being hidden? And will Nick and Daniel be able to continue to keep the secret without being discovered? The answers to these questions remain to be seen, but one thing is certain: Billy Abbott will stop at nothing until he finds out the truth behind the strange disappearance of Phyllis Summers.